Friends, now we are on with the next episode, and for a change, we have changed the roles. I would be introducing my friend Karthik Pandit, and he's going to speak about the subject of delegation, one of the most important topic for the SME owners and for successful running of a SME business. He will explain to you the nuances of how to do an effective delegation for managing a successful operation of an organization, whereby the stress and strain on the owner or the person who is running the show is reduced. Now I hand over to my friend Karthik. Yeah.
Yeah, hello friends. This is Karthik Pandit here again. And as Chaitanya said, Dr. C.A. Chaitanya said, this is a bit of a role reversal. I'm going to speak on delegation. Delegation is a word which everybody believes he understands and he implements. But there would be a few question marks that you may want to ask yourself. These are pointers that we may have for you to ask yourself whether you're actually delegating. If not, how you can delegate. In my view, delegation could be of two types. One which is work related, another which is decision making related. Work related is something which is necessitated because you cannot physically reach to everything that you want to do. A typical SME owner or MSME owner likes to do everything on his own because that's the way he's trained. He started his business on a small scale and is used to doing everything on his own. But as he grows in business, and as he grows in volumes, as he grows in contacts, and as complexities of business increase, he's in a quandary as to how does he delegate. He starts delegating which are routine work, but is that enough? And what is routine work? Routine work is something that you would want to do, which you were doing previously, but now believe is not worth it. Not worth it because you don't have the time and physically you have limitation. Whereas decision making, a delegation on decision is a very different ball game altogether. And that ball game relates to inclusiveness in business. And what do I mean by inclusiveness in business? It means whatever the status of your employees, of your partners, or even of your family members, you need to delegate in such a way that they become part of decision making. The question is, are you able to do it? If yes, how are you doing it? If not, here are some tips. What you could do is, you could have a regular meeting in the office to get them involved in whatever you're trying to do in the business with the problems and solutions and future that you think is good for your business. But actually what happens is that it's very difficult for an SME owner to share secrets because he believes information is power. And when I mean information, I mean he has all the information about his business, which probably he doesn't want to share with everybody. Maybe he wants to share with one or two, a few selected people in the organization. Is it risky to share information with everybody? Well, you have to be choosy, but you cannot be choosy to such an extent that you don't share or you don't delegate at all. Now let's come to actual delegation. Let's take an example. In initial phases, you write checks, you make bills, you deposit checks in the bank, and you do everything. The important thing here is signing on the check, which gives you an authority and a responsibility. Maybe you started delegating the writing of the check, the making of the invoice to your staff, to your employee, to your colleague, to your relative who joins you. But are you giving him the authority, the delegation to decide on whether he will be authorized to write the check? Now, these kinds of issues affect the business. Now, how does it affect the business? It affects the business in many which ways, and let me list just one or two for you. It infects the business because an employee never feels that he's part of the organization. So delegation and oneness, ownership of not in terms of legally owning it, but ownership that this is my business. I am part of it. I'm not here for just 8 or 10 hours, makes all the difference. What you're expecting to do by delegation is that you're expecting the employee to give his maximum. If he's giving 100, you want to expect him to do 110, 120, 130, whatever your benchmark is. So therefore, delegation to that extent is an ongoing process. It's dynamic. Today, what you're delegated, tomorrow you may have to withdraw because it depends upon the circumstances. So there is no fixed rule on delegation, but a question needs to be asked practically every day, if you like, if not every day, at least at a regular basis. And the question that needs to be asked is, am I delegating? and I need to define what is delegation. So my definition of delegation is that somebody who is working with me in whatever capacity is working, he is able to contribute in decision making, in executing. And decision making does not mean that he is given the authority to take the decision. It means, in my point of view, that he is allowed to think. He is allowed to think for the organization. He is allowed to align himself with the organization, with the thought processes of the owner who wants to grow. These are the kinds of delegation which typically, in our experience, we find is rather difficult. And it is driven by some fears, and some of them are not, and some of them are well founded. Why? Because an employee may run away with some secrets, especially the accounting side, especially the information on technology. But you have to have safeguards to ensure that that does not happen. Today, the biggest challenge that SME faces is manpower, right manpower. The question is, how do you retain? How do you retain the right manpower? And the right manpower is through proper delegation. Again, the key word is proper. A proper is a two-way process. I may think that I'm doing the best. I need to check with the employee. I need to have a reverse feedback, whether the employee feels, my colleague feels, my partner feels that whether he is also getting enough authority to take that decision to go ahead in what he is planning to do. Also, growth is a human tendency. Everybody wants to grow. A peon wants to grow, and so does an MD of a company, or the owner of a company wants to grow. So if you are on 6th floor as the owner of an organization, unless you go on the 7th floor, you will not create space on the 6th floor for somebody in the organization. That creating space, that living space for that employee is delegation. Also, therefore, delegation has to be consciously done. It cannot be done in a hurry, nor it can be slow. It's a very tricky matrix, and the matrix is best thought out through external help, to help by which you are able to discuss these issues with some people and then decide. Let me give you another example. Typically, every job in an organization is 80% routine or 90% routine, and 10% is value addition. Are you delegating the 80-90% part of your job, or are you looking at delegating the 10-20% of your job, which is real cream the cream of the job? Are you able to do that? Do you have a system to do that? Are you being appreciated for that? Are you getting enough feedback to that? These are pointers. These are not the only questions that you need to ask. There may be many more, but these are a few. As we always say, our intent in this series is to raise pointers. It will be for you to digest them, to dwell on them, and to check with your friends, to check with your colleagues. And of course, we are available to you should you want to ask with us. But this, I must tell you, is based on more than 80 to 90 years of corporate experience, and that does not come easy. So here is something available to you. Should you want to reach out to us, you're more than welcome to do that. But having said that, do sleep on this matter of delegation and try and implement as you can.
Karthik, very well said. I will straight away give you an example for the benefit of the listeners. Of late, I find, Money's Cafe is coming up in a big way in entire Bombay. There are about 5 to 6 joints which have already opened. Last Sunday, I was there, and I was really amazed to see the way it was a team of, I counted 7 people. One was sitting at the counter, taking money and issuing the slips for delivery as well as the counter delivery. And the way the whole work was divided, the way everybody was working, I would say, I would call it as a wonderful way of, the people were executing the orders, and the delegation which was there, the coordination between each one of them was simply phenomenal. And that's what I think you are trying to say, that the smooth way in which the entire organization should be working without any break
It
is
shows.
something very wonderful.
It shows that there is delegation in the
Yes,
organization.
yes. And
Also,
that's where, yeah.
sorry. Also, it is high time. Let us try and touch a raw nerve. It is perhaps high time that we stop looking at the West. Their definition of delegation. Money is an example of Indian method of delegation. In India, let's look at these success stories and look at their delegation. make case studies, and implement them. We don't need to look at the West. We don't need a telescope to look at the West to need and understand what is delegation.
Well, I think Indians are really masters. Some of the old Indian, these Marwadi groups, the way they have been handling their delegation and control systems are amazing, amazing. So we need to pick up and whatever best suits the organization and the owner has to help them. And bottom line, as Karthik said, is owner's time, how much he is able to save and still effectively maintain the organization ethos and working.
Yeah.
So
So
friends,
if you were to make a formula, delegation is inversely related to productivity. The more you delegate, the more you are able to accomplish in whatever you are trying to look at. I think that's the way we would want to close this. Bye for now.
sure.
We say wait for our
Okay,
next
bye.
episode. Do subscribe to our channels. Comments are invited. And should you decide to contact us, you could contact us Chaitanya Shah at cshah01@yahoo.co.in or Karthik Pandit at karthik.pandit@gmail.com. Bye for now.